While the president remained in Washington over the weekend, very snowy, he was ready and willing to do a deal with the Democrats to reopen the government. Nancy Pelosi and her crew left town. But, oh, they talked a good game.
Why punish people who are applying for food stamps because the president is having a temper tantrum? Open government first.
I hope they'll just do the right thing, reopen the government.
More border security, let's have at it. But while we're having that debate, let's reopen the government.
Come on, let's get down to business here. Open up this government tomorrow.
As I always say, forget what they say, look at what they do. As Democratic leaders adjourned the House on Friday, more than 30 Democratic members and their families needed to catch a chartered flight bound for the sunny shores of Puerto Rico. So while 800,000 government workers remain on furlough, these very concerned Democrats were living the high life at a beach resort in San Juan. Very nice. The trip came courtesy of 109 lobbyists from Facebook, Amazon, various unions, and Microsoft, you know, the little people. Well, it was part of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus's Bold PAC retreat. The Democrats were purportedly there to survey the damage of Hurricane Maria and talk with various union groups. Now, remember that tidbit. Now, here's Senator Robert Menendez. He's taking a very personal interest in the local recovery efforts. Looks like instead of helping the hurricane victims, he's helping himself to a hurricane on the rocks. Now, let's face it, this is a liberal PAC junket paid for by the lobbyists so that congressmen and senators can frolic in the tropics with celebrities. Yes, the big congressional getaway fell on the same weekend, wouldn't you know, as Broadway megastar Lin-Manuel Miranda brought his Tony Award-winning musical Hamilton to the island with the original cast, no less. Well, imagine the luck. The media have been tripping over themselves praising Miranda for his tireless efforts to bring Hamilton to Puerto Rico as a fundraiser to support the arts on the island. It's a nice thing. The plan was to perform the musical for 3 weeks, smash success, at the theater at the University of Puerto Rico. Now, there's a really interesting backstory that got lost in all the gauzy coverage. It's the alma mater of Lin-Manuel's father. The Miranda family charity raised $1 million to restore and upgrade the storm-ravaged theater. Good stuff. But this led to a shutdown of a different sort. It turns out the University of Puerto Rico is roiled by union protests. And one of those unions sent a letter to Miranda's father.
The letter ended up saying there are real problems at the University of Puerto Rico, and we want to advise bad things, protests can happen around your production.
Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda has been all for protests. He and his family have long supported left-wing causes, and he's even mined his Hamilton score for protest songs.
Yeah, you'll blow us all away someday, someday. Don't stop, don't give up until these families are reunited. Thank you.
Well, the New York Times quotes some students at the University of Puerto Rico who were less than thrilled that Hamilton would be coming to campus. Try to figure this out. One said, quote, "The only artists and people that benefit from Hamilton are the elite white North American settlers, the rich bourgeoisie, and those who actively participate and aspire to become oppressors. As a Latin person, he should be more conscious of who Hamilton was. He's glorifying a person that represents oppression. He could have made a show about Harriet Tubman." Well, in addition to the union groups, students were also threatening to protest the production on campus. So how did Mr. "They're not taking away my shot" react in the face of the leftist threats? Well, sadly, he caved to the pressure and moved the production to an arts center off campus. Miranda gave in to mob rule. He also missed a huge opportunity, with the world press looking on, no less, to challenge and educate the illiberal forces undermining free speech on campus, even art that pretty much supports their agenda. If these college nuts are emboldened enough to go after their favorite son, who just gave them $1 million to rebuild their theater, what can other performers expect? And Lynn, what would Hamilton have done?
It was an ovation like none other. Cathartic after so much pain. the ultimate tribute to Puerto Rico's resiliency.
Well, Miranda never looked back. The whole controversy and the entire episode in capitulation to these leftist kooks was lost in a swirl of celebrity and glamour, just the way the left likes it. Oh, and some of those 30-plus visiting Democrats were right there plodding along in the audience Sunday night. But poor babies, they had to buy their own Hamilton tickets, according to reports. But don't worry, they got to attend an after-party with the cast for free, courtesy of the Latino Victory. It's a liberal PAC. You see, the elites always stick together. I bet they thought they were in the room where it happened, even if they weren't. And that's the angle.
I think it's the most insulting thing I've ever been asked. I think it's the most insulting article I've ever had written. And if you read the article, you'd see that they found absolutely nothing. But the headline of that article is called "The Failing New York Times" for a reason.
President Trump coming out swinging against the New York Times over its report that the FBI investigated whether President Trump was actually working with the Russians. Here to react, the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Tom, great to have you here. When you read the Times report, what was your reaction?
You know, it just shows you how out of control the FBI has been. They think that taking personnel action against the FBI director is the same as treason. And so if you're looking at the deep state, this is what the deep state is. You oppose the bureaucracy, we're going to target you with an illicit investigation. And you know, what's even worse about this, which Times kind of glosses over, is they had already been targeting the president for almost a year. They had the dossier, they had the fake FISA warrants based on the dossier, they had taken up phone records, they had sicked spies on the Trump team to try to make it seem and investigate whether or not the Russians were somehow coordinating with them, and they all came up empty. And so what they're now doing is saying that firing James Comey is an indication of treason. I tell you, you know, this is an FBI, at the leadership level at least, which was rogue. And I frankly don't understand why Director Wray has been so quiet about the misconduct of his predecessor. And you know, they could target Trump for firing Comey, but in the days after Comey left, it's pretty clear he had stolen FBI files and leaked them to the New York Times. I don't see any concern within the FBI leadership about what James Comey did. And on top of it, you've got all of this strong evidence that you had the Clinton team coordinating with what they admit to be Russia intelligence. And then you've got the scandal of Uranium One, which had the Russians directly trying to influence decision-making in the Obama administration by giving money personally to the Clinton operation. Where's the investigation there? And it shows you that this was all about getting Trump. And I tell you, there needs to be a criminal investigation of the abuse of office here at this point, because given the politics of the individuals involved, like Peter Strzok, you can't just go after someone because you don't like their politics. That's an abuse of law subject to criminal investigation.
Take it back for a second to specifically this incident or issue over the weekend. The headline had a lot of bark, but in terms of the bite, there was this line that was buried in the middle, if not the end of the article. Quote, "No evidence has emerged publicly that Mr. Trump was secretly in contact with or took direction from Russian government officials." There's sort of nobody out there that I'm aware of that's not in a government capacity that's as deep into this general topic as you. What have you seen that can in any way, shape, or form even allow them to open up an investigation like the sort that they did?
There is absolutely nothing, and they had no good faith basis to pursue President Trump then or before or since. And another concerning thing is that Robert Mueller has been investigating this very issue, allegedly, since the time he was appointed. And as the New York Times points out, still no public investigation. They investigated it through 2016, nothing. Through 2017, nothing. 2018, nothing. And my guess is there's an IG report from the Department of Justice about to come out soon that questions whether or not there was a good faith basis to be targeting Trump. And this is the spin trying to justify their own misconduct.
Continuing on with a generalized thought that nobody's been as deep in the Russia situation trying to dissect it like you, what did you make of that Washington Post report that the president is hiding details of his discussions with Vladimir Putin, telling people that he needed to get the translator's transcript to destroy it or do whatever he wanted to do with it, but not allow the media or anybody else to see it, including his top advisors?
Well, again, this is just more spin trying to suggest the president is doing something inappropriate. The president had meetings that were quite public with Putin. He's described them directly, typically meetings between a leader, a former head of state, and the president are confidential. I don't buy the fact he was trying to destroy all records of the meeting. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And look, Mr. Trump has been as aggressive on Russia policy, much more aggressive than certainly President Obama was, imposing sanctions, throwing personnel out of the country, arming Ukraine. This is a pretty aggressive president in terms of confronting Russia aggression. So the idea that he was an agent or had something embarrassing to hide with Putin, I think this really just goes to the attitude that the establishment has towards President Trump. He's not allowed to be president. He's not allowed to fire the FBI director. He's not allowed to talk to foreign leaders. And if he does any of that, we're going to overthrow him. Right. And and if they want to pursue a coup plan, that's their prerogative. But the rule of law needs to stand against it and needs to be enforced against it.
Tom Fitton, as always, we appreciate your insight. Thanks for getting up with us. We certainly appreciate it.
You're welcome.